Justice in America is never still. Some charges collapse, others multiply. Trials inch forward while families wait through sleepless nights. And every now and then, the system jolts, sometimes offering relief, sometimes slamming doors shut forever. Tonight on Silent Veil, we bring you clarity on 6 cases that reveal the shape of justice in 2025. Luigi Mangione, once branded a terrorist, now stands accused simply of murder, but faces a federal death penalty. In Utah, prosecutors are pursuing the ultimate punishment in the shooting of activist Charlie Kirk. In Colorado, the trial of Mohamed Sabry Soliman, accused of firebombing a family's home, has been delayed yet again. In Maryland, Adnan Syed, whose case became famous through the podcast Serial, has been released on probation, though his conviction still stands in law. In California, the Menendez brothers have been denied yet another bid for relief, sealing their decades-old conviction. And in Florida, the matriarch accused of arranging the murder of law professor Dan Markel is demanding a new trial. These 6 cases, unfolding in real time, show us how fragile the line between freedom and prison, between delay and closure, truly is. This is Silent Veil. Luigi Mangione, terrorism charges collapse, murder remains. When United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was killed, the case quickly became more than a murder. Prosecutors charged Luigi Mangione not only with second-degree murder, but with 2 state counts of terrorism. The word itself, terrorism, transformed the case from a personal crime to an ideological act. But in September 2025, a New York judge dismissed both terrorism counts. The ruling was blunt: prosecutors had not proven that Mangione's actions met the statutory definition of terrorism, which requires proof that a crime was committed to intimidate or coerce the public or government. Murder may be horrifying, but not every murder is terrorism. The dismissal reshapes the narrative. For Thompson's grieving family, the decision feels like part of the horror has been erased. For prosecutors, it is a setback. But for Mangione, the danger is not gone. He still faces a murder charge in state court, and far more ominously, a federal indictment that could bring the death penalty. The next state hearing is set for December 1, 2025. Meanwhile, federal prosecutors prepare arguments that Mangione's actions warrant capital punishment. His defense team argues the terrorism charges were reckless overreach, meant to prejudice jurors. The judge agreed with them. But on the core allegation, that Mangione killed a man, his trial is far from over. This case highlights how words matter in law. Terrorism is not simply a label, it is a precise legal category. Stretching it too far risks collapse. Now the focus returns to the core question: did Mangione commit murder, and if so, what penalty should he face? For Silent Veil, this case reminds us that clarity in law often comes by narrowing, not expanding, the accusations. Charlie Kirk shooting, prosecutors seek death penalty. September 10, 2025. Outside his Utah home, activist Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. Within days, police arrested Tyler Robinson, a 33-year-old man they accuse of planning and carrying out the attack. In mid-September, prosecutors announced formal charges: aggravated murder, firearm use, obstruction of justice, and witness tampering. Most significantly, they declared they will seek the death penalty. Aggravated murder in Utah requires aggravating factors: proof of premeditation, cruelty, or risk to others. Prosecutors claim Robinson targeted Kirk deliberately, firing multiple shots in an assassination-style killing. The evidence so far includes surveillance video placing Robinson's vehicle near the crime scene, and testimony from his partner, who is cooperating with investigators. Prosecutors argue the combination of presence and testimony paints a clear picture of guilt. But defense attorneys say proximity is not proof. They insist surveillance footage only shows Robinson's car, not his actions. They question the reliability of testimony given by a partner who may face her own pressures. The political undertone is impossible to ignore. Supporters call this ideological violence, critics warn against politicizing an active case. Yet in court, jurors will be instructed to strip away politics and focus only on evidence. Robinson's next hearing is set for September 29, 2025. There, prosecutors will outline their evidence, and the defense will begin pushing back. This case sits within a troubling lineage of political violence in the United States: the shooting of Gabrielle Giffords in 2011, the assault on lawmakers in 2017, the attack on Paul Pelosi in 2022. Now, Charlie Kirk's killing joins that list. The death penalty raises the stakes higher than ever. Utah jurors rarely impose it, but prosecutors believe this case meets the threshold. For Silent Veil, this trial will reveal not just the evidence, but how America judges violence against its political figures. Mohamed Sabry Soliman, Boulder firebombing delayed. In 2022, a firebomb ripped through a home in Boulder, Colorado, killing 5 members of a family and injuring others. Survivors described scenes of horror, flames consuming their home in minutes. The suspect, Mohamed Sabry Soliman, faces over 180 state charges, including multiple counts of first-degree murder, along with federal charges of hate crimes and unlawful use of explosives. Families of victims hoped 2025 would bring trial. Instead, on September 11, a judge announced both state and federal trials would be delayed until 2026. The reason is complexity. Cases with hundreds of charges and overlapping jurisdictions move slowly. Discovery evidence stretches into thousands of pages. Coordinating between state and federal prosecutors takes time. Judges argue that hasty trials risk mistakes that could undo convictions on appeal. For families, the delay is crushing. Each new court date reopens grief. They wonder how many birthdays, holidays, and anniversaries will pass before justice comes. The next step is a state arraignment on November 5, 2025. There, prosecutors will refile charges and prepare for the long road ahead. Federal trial dates will be set later. Soliman's defense argues that delays demonstrate weakness in the case. Prosecutors counter that delay is about strength, not weakness, about building a case that can endure scrutiny. This trial, when it arrives, will be among Colorado's most significant in years. It will test forensic evidence of accelerants, digital records of planning, and testimony about hate-driven motive. For Silent Veil, the Boulder case is a chilling reminder that mass violence trials test not only facts, but the patience and endurance of all who wait for justice. Adnan Syed, release with conviction intact. In 1999, Hae Min Lee, a Baltimore high school student, was found strangled in a park. Her ex-boyfriend, Adnan Syed, was convicted of her murder. For years, his case lay quietly until the podcast serial ignited worldwide attention in 2014. Suddenly, millions debated Syed's guilt. Was he a calculating killer, or a young man wrongfully convicted? Over the next decade, his case twisted through appeals. In 2022, his conviction was vacated. In 2023, appellate courts reinstated it. Finally, in 2025, Syed was resentenced. He was released on probation, credited with time served. His conviction technically stands, but he is a free man. The outcome divided the public. Supporters celebrated, saying justice had corrected itself. Critics argued the conviction's reinstatement means the system still brands him a murderer. For Hae Min Lee's family, the legal roller coaster has been agony. They insist her memory is overshadowed by debate over Syed. The Syed case matters because it illustrates how media can reshape justice. Serial changed not just one trial, but the way the world consumes true crime. It sparked discussions on ineffective counsel, unreliable cell tower evidence, and the weight of reasonable doubt. Today, Syed lives under probation restrictions. He is neither exonerated nor imprisoned. He exists in a liminal space between freedom and guilt. For Silent Veil, this case is about narrative power, the way stories told through microphones and court transcripts collide, and how justice can shift under pressure from both evidence and public opinion. Menendez Brothers, Habeas petition denied. In 1989, the Beverly Hills mansion of Jose and Kitty Menendez became a crime scene. Their sons, Lyle and Eric, confessed to the killings but claimed years of abuse drove them to violence. Prosecutors countered that greed motivated the murders. Their trials captivated the 1990s, broadcast on daytime television, dissected by tabloids. Ultimately, both brothers were convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole. Decades later, in 2025, they pursued a habeas corpus petition, arguing constitutional violations and new evidence merited relief. Habeas is a rare remedy, granted only in extraordinary circumstances. A California judge denied their petition in September. The ruling stated they had not met the high legal threshold for relief. Their convictions stand. For the brothers, now in their 50s, the denial likely marks the end of meaningful legal options. For advocates who believe their abuse claims, it is another disappointment. For victims' rights groups, it is affirmation that the original verdict remains sound. The Menendez case remains a cultural touchstone, fuel for documentaries, debates on family violence, and social media campaigns. But legally, the chapter is closed. The brothers remain in prison for life. Silent Veil reminds you, the courts demand extraordinary proof to undo history. Without it, verdicts, however old, remain fixed. Dan Markel Murder-for-Hire, new trial motion. In 2014, Florida State University law professor Dan Markel was shot in his driveway, a murder police said was arranged as part of a bitter family dispute. Investigations revealed a murder-for-hire scheme tied to his in-laws. Over years, multiple conspirators were convicted. In 2024, the matriarch of the family, the mother of Markel's ex-wife, was convicted of orchestrating the killing. Prosecutors argued she coordinated payments and logistics to silence Markel. She was sentenced to life. Now, in September 2025, she has filed for a new trial. Her attorneys argue procedural errors and unfair prejudice tainted the jury. They claim the state withheld evidence, and that new testimony undermines the case. New trials are rarely granted. Judges weigh whether errors genuinely prevented fair process. In most cases, verdicts stand. But if the court agrees, it could reopen one of Florida's most notorious cases. For Markel's family, the motion is devastating. Each new filing means revisiting loss. For prosecutors, it means another battle to defend convictions. The Markel case underscores how murder-for-hire crimes stretch justice, layers of conspirators, payments, and family betrayals. Even after a decade, the echoes remain. Silent Veil will continue to follow this story, as courts decide whether the matriarch's conviction remains sealed, or whether the case will open again. 6 cases. 6 crossroads. A businessman's murder stripped of terrorism labels. An activist's shooting now a death penalty trial. A firebombing delayed yet again. A podcast-famous convict released, but not cleared. Brothers of infamy shut out of relief. A matriarch demanding a second chance. Justice is not one story, it is hundreds of rulings, thousands of hearings, and millions of lives changed. For families, each decision carries weight beyond law. For defendants, each ruling narrows or expands the path. This is Silent Veil. Subscribe for cinematic, ethical true crime every Tuesday and Friday, where we follow not the noise, but the evidence.